Today we're talking about a mutant cyborg assassin, an X-Man with a lady living inside of him, a storm shadowy Francophile named Fantomex. The mercenary and assassin, Charlie Cluster 7, aka Fantomex, first appeared with 2002's New X-Men issue 128. Fantomex is Weapon 13, the 13th product of the Weapons Plus program, and that is where we start the story. During the 1940s, the world was embroiled in a Second World War, so in an ongoing effort to gain an upper hand against the Allied forces, the German government sought to create super soldiers called the Übermensch under Dr. Erskine. Erskine, though, would eventually defect to America, and he helped the Allies with their own super soldier efforts, using his experiments and findings for Project Rebirth, a project which gave birth to the first of the super soldiers, Weapon 1, Captain America. Meanwhile, Truett Hudson, using the pseudonym Professor Thornton, was embedded with an army unit deployed to the eastern theater of the war. There he stumbled upon a secret laboratory once belonging to Nathaniel Essex, the man who'd later become Mr. Sinister, and took the research, rolling it into the larger super soldier effort dubbed the Weapons Plus program. Over the years, the Weapons Plus program tried 8 more experiments with varying levels of success. And on their 10th attempt, a criminal named Romulus paired up with the Central Intelligence Agency and called this latest project Weapon X, aka Weapon 10. Weapon X, in collaboration with Romulus, the CIA, and their Team X super soldier strike team, along with Canada's Department K, bonded their subject with adamantium, and Wolverine was born. Weapon 12 became the Huntsman, and the Huntsman was Zona Cluster 6 and was created with nano-sentinel technology with accelerated artificial evolution modalities, and then grown inside of a facility called the World. The World is akin to the Matrix, an artificial reality created by the Weapons Plus program under Dr. John Sublime, and with help from AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, that they could manipulate with outside programming. Space and time within the World were controllable. Sublime was a sentient bacterial life form that had taken over the human doctor's body, and he created the procedure by which a human mother would be mated with a machine to create the super sentinel hybrids that they wanted to form a mutant hunting strike force, appropriately named the Super Sentinels. Weapon 13 was also grown in the World in the same way, and this was Charlie Cluster 7 who took on the name Fantomex. In the real world, Fantomex was created by Grant Morrison, who took inspiration from Goscinny's Italian comic Diablik, whose lover was Eva Kant. He also took inspiration from Pierre Silvestri and Marcel Alain's French character Fantomas, along with the Yugoslavian Zigomar, who himself takes inspiration from characters like Lone Ranger and Lee Falk's The Phantom comic strip. Perhaps this was a contribution of Croatian co-creator Igor Kordi. So anyway, back to the story in the world. Sublime was creating these human sentinel mutant hunters to build an army for what he thought was the inevitable human versus mutant war. They sped up time, allowing for hundreds of centuries of mutation to happen in a mere year and a half. Due to this, Fantomex acquired unique physiology and biology. For example, he had 3 separate brains that could operate either together or separately, as well as an external nervous system that took on its own identity, named Eva. Before the opening shots of that projected war could begin, Fantomex escaped. In 2020, during Jonathan Hickman's Krakoa era, we learned that over decades, Fantomex worked with the Howling Commandos, the Hellfire Club, and the Humungonauts to break into the world, wanting to save his twin, which it turns out is Ultimaton. When Weapons Plus ran a simulation where a train crashed into the tunnel, which was essentially a field test for both him and the Huntsman, he used that opportunity to flee, and he escaped to Paris, France, and met up with the X Corporation. And this is when he first encountered Professor Charles Xavier and Jean Grey. To disguise his true self, Fantomex put on a faux French accent and told them he was a notorious mutant criminal, and he needed a place to lay low. He took on the name Jean-Philippe. The 3 of them left with help from a UFO-shaped Eva to go check on the X Corporation field team who'd gone to investigate the train crash. This is when Fantomex told Professor X about Weapons Plus and said he'd tell him more about it if he'd help him stop the Huntsman. Fantomex then shot and battled his way through Huntsman's army and those mind-controlled by him, including Darkstar. At the train wreck, Fantomex found Huntsman's pod and blew it up, killing Huntsman in the blast. Jean Grey saw Fantomex's pod and realized he was Weapon 13, but let him go anyway. Later, Fantomex was in Afghanistan trying to steal a list of criminals engaged in slave trade to use as blackmail when he ran into Wolverine. He found the mutant Dust and put her in Wolverine's custody, and not long after that, Fantomex reached out to Wolverine to ask for help stopping Ultimaton. So Fantomex, Wolverine, and Cyclops infiltrated the World where time was frozen following an attack by AIM. They battled their way to Ultimaton when the World came back online, but they weren't able to stop him before he broke out of the facility and made it to the Weapons Plus orbital space station. Fantomex and Cyclops used Eva to pursue them, to near-Earth orbit after unlocking Weapons Plus files in the database for Wolverine to read through, and while they were in space, Wolverine was sickened by what he uncovered in the database, and he detonated the space station. Fantomex and Cyclops, though, made it off the station in a shuttle just in time. When they got back to Earth, the X-Men were fighting the villain Zorn, who was imitating Magneto in a battle in Manhattan. Cyclops quickly recruited Fantomex, Eva, and some others to the X-Men to fight fake Magneto. Fantomex led the charge, defeating Zorn and rescued Professor X. It was soon after that Fantomex went back to his retaliatory war against the Weapons Plus program. In his investigation, he found Dr. Sublime's grave, but instead of a body, it contained a note that had the word Roanoke on it. Fantomex then found a secret facility for the Weapon X program. Empty though it was, save for one man, Agent Zero. The two fought for a moment before deciding to team up. They found Sublime and his army of U-Men. Fantomex and Agent Zero were overwhelmed by sheer numbers, defeated and left for dead. A guy named Shortpack later reached out to Fantomex for help killing a mutant arms dealer named Steinbeck as revenge for killing his agent Prudence. Since he was a handler for Professor X's field agents, Shortpack had control over Prudence and he felt responsible for her death. His second agent, though, was the mutant shapeshifter Mystique. Fantomex appreciated Shortpack's innocence and heart, and so he didn't want that to die if Shortpack became a killer, so Fantomex refused to help him murder Steinbeck. Mystique, a double agent it turns out, was investigating Shortpack's disappearance, which is how she learned that Shortpack had met with Fantomex. She caught up with him in Montenegro and learned what Shortpack's plan was, so she went to go rescue Shortpack, and Fantomex followed Mystique, uncovering her own plot to assassinate Xavier. Mystique agreed to do a heist with Fantomex if he would keep silent on what he learned of her murder plot. When she brought back the loot, she infected even Fantomex with a technorganic virus, seemingly killing him. Only that too was a ruse, because she knew Shepard was watching her. Shepard was the other that she was a double agent for. So later, Fantomex and Mystique ended up teaming up to take down both Shepard and Steinbeck. Following a secret invasion when Osborn and S.H.I.E.L.D. replacement Hammer had risen to power, Norman Osborn sought to take control of Weapons Plus and the world. This by proxy made weapons like Fantomex a target as well. It was Novar, aka Marvel Boy, from Osborn's Dark Avengers team who first approached Wolverine about stopping Hammer from taking control of the world facility. They made it inside and were attacked by mutants, followed by Fantomex, who took a sidekick right to the solar plexus. The two then paired up to escape, which is when Fantomex said he suspected that the world had gone sentient, which was the only way to explain why it was still active after all of its creators were now dead. He also said that the mind control element was Weapon 16, dubbed All God. It was a living religion, but you must have faith for it to affect you. Fantomex was not infected though because of the nanites moderating his neocortex. They made it to the brain of the world and started shooting it, which is when Wolverine flew at them, attacking Fantomex with his adamantium claws. Marvel Boy stopped the brain, freeing Wolverine from its mind control, and the three battled their way out of the world. Fantomex then used a shrinking ray he'd once stolen from Dr. Doom to shrink the world down and keep it in his pocket, firmly under his control. In Uncanny X-Men, Fantomex met up with a boy who told him the story of how his family was attacked by Predator X, and so he went on a Predator X hunting mission. Wolverine, Colossus, and Cyclops tracked an invasion of Utopia through a sewer, which is when they ran into Fantomex, and they asked for his help, but he told them no. They fought Loeb of the U-Men, who used the nanite data to learn how to counter all the X-Men's powers and fighting styles. Fantomex showed up and took him down since he wasn't in that nanite data. He wasn't an X-Man, and so he wasn't affected by Loeb's manipulations. They battled the villains, and when Fantomex took down Loeb, Loeb released an airborne contagion on the team. Fantomex had Eva form a protective dome around the X-Men while he confronted Loeb. Fantomex then flew Eva out of there, saving the X-Men in the process. Later, he debriefed Cyclops and said X-Men out, informally confirming he was now a member of the X-Men. They got back to base just as the team was learning that the bullet that Kitty Pryde was phased through had turned around in space and was headed back to Earth. And around this time, Fantomex seemingly started having his fling with Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke, bringing her flowers and all that. He was still with her when the Nimrod Future Sentinels attacked and domed off the X-Men. In the summer of 2010, Fantomex joined Wolverine, Psylocke, Deadpool, and Archangel as the next iteration of X-Force. Fantomex was later still at Utopia in a sensory deprivation chamber when Emma Frost came to him for help getting up to some funny business. She needed him to sneak a secret prisoner out of the brig, a prisoner only she, Kitty Pryde, and Danger knew about. He then went to the X Club to talk with Madison Jeffries and encouraged him to take Danger out of the facility somewhere off-site so they could get to know each other. It was part of his plan, of course. It was to get them off-site so he could get Sebastian Shaw out. Fantomex did try to use Eva to cloud Danger's vision, but that didn't work, though he still managed to get Shaw out, although Danger did know what happened. Fantomex, Emma Frost, and Kitty Pryde flew away with their captive Sebastian Shaw. They flew Shaw to an outpost in Xinjiang, China. As Shaw was telling the story of Emma, Fantomex threw Shaw out of the Eva craft 10,000 feet in the air, though Shaw's kinetic energy absorption power cushioned his fall. In Uncanny X-Men issue 532, while the trio tracked Shaw, the narration made reference to Danger, Diablik, and how Fantomex is a fan. This just as Shaw leapt at them and punched Eva so hard she was down. Before they had time to recover from the crash, Shaw attacked again. He went right for Emma, so Fantomex grabbed a rifle and shot Shaw with a volley of incendiary rounds. Emma then landed on top of Frost, something, well, he seemed to like. In X-Men to Serve and Protect, Fantomex got his own story where he went against Batroc the Leaper, and the two battled over a massive diamond. Emma sent Fantomex and Dr. Nemesis to Angel Island in San Francisco to assassinate Wolverine, while the Red Right Hand sought to put demons inside of Wolverine and turn him on his teammates and friends. They both mag dumped their weapons right into Wolverine's center mass, but his healing factor outpaced their firing rate. Logan then blasted them both with his Hellfire. Later, Wolverine and Archangel secretly put the Uncanny X-Force Black Ops team back together again, which now included them, along with Fantomex, Deadpool, and Psylocke. Their mission? Kill Apocalypse and preserve the Age of Heroes. Fantomex was in the middle of a heist at the Tower of London when the story began, and he lost a bet with Wolverine. They failed as each were infected with Apocalypse's power. This was to prep for a real attack on both his Horsemen and the Child Apocalypse, which was the resurrected Apocalypse by the clan Akaba. They went to the moon to fight, but Fantomex was taken down by Eva's screaming head. Psylocke protected Fantomex's mind from Famine's attack, which resulted in War falling in love with her after Fantomex used his misdirection abilities on the Horsemen. Fantomex and Wolverine fought their way through the clan members, while Fantomex had Eva make the Horsemen's teleporter send them to the wrong location. So while the team argued over whether or not they should kill the Child Apocalypse, Fantomex shot the boy right in the face, something that Fantomex would struggle with and something that caused a fracture amongst the team. Fantomex then revisited the world and found it to have been sped up with millions of years of evolution having passed, and that was now infused with something that was part Technarchy, Reaver, and Phalanx coupled with Stark, Roxxon, and Osborn technology. This was Weapon Infinity. He then ended up battling an army of Deathlocks in the French Alps who were there to steal the world. They also had to take on Deathstrike and the Reavers before Fantomex got back to fighting the Deathlocks. An aberrant Deathlock ended up helping Fantomex even when Deathlocked X-Force showed up. The team infiltrated the world to assassinate the architect of the Deathlock program, the Father, along with the Future. They fought their way through, and then it was revealed that Fantomex had a new Child Apocalypse being grown deep in the world, a replacement for the one he shot. They then took on the Shadow King to stop a nuclear missile launch, and when some, like Wolverine, were enthralled with his power, the team fought, with Wolverine seemingly slicing off both of Fantomex's arms, though that was another of Fantomex's misdirections. Later, Fantomex and Psylocke battled, mind-controlled Wolverine and Deadpool before Archangel killed all of Farouk's men and saved his team. To try to stop Archangel from his ascension to be Apocalypse's heir, Dark Beast took Fantomex to the Age of Apocalypse dimension to retrieve a life seed. And it was in that other dimension where Fantomex fought a sword-wielding Nightcrawler who wanted to prevent them from taking the life seed, though Sunfire took it and just chucked it away. The AOA team and X-Force teamed up and went to Atlantis, where they encountered the long-lost Jean Grey. Fantomex was tasked with leading a team to steal another life seed in a Celestial that MODOK had detected, but before they left, he and Psylocke argued, and then let their passion get the best of them. He took Gambit, Rogue, and Sunfire with him to infiltrate the sky and steal the seed. Inside the dead Gardener Celestial, the team had to battle giant antibodies. Eva then helped them fight while Fantomex and Gambit recovered the life seed. Jean sent them back to their own world and ran headlong into Dark Beast, Archangel, and the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Fantomex stabbed Archangel in the foot, but got beat so bad that Psylocke had to drag him away. Later, during Fear itself, Fantomex worked with Eva and the rest of X-Force to stop the Purifiers and a guy named Jonathan Standish. Around this time, Deadpool, Deathlock, and Fantomex went back inside the world to stop Archangel. Fantomex shot Warren in the head and then turned his guns to Billy Rolfson, aka Genocide, while the others killed Death and captured Famine. Fanto and Pool battled Blob and the Black Legion, taking him down in a horrific way just before Sinister Iceman stole Deadpool. Fantomex talked with Psylocke when she became the Death Horseman. She seemingly slit his throat, but that was yet another of Fantomex's ruses. When it was down to just Fantomex and Psylocke standing between Warren and the end of all life on Earth, Fantomex had Ultimaton release Evan, aka Genesis, Evan being a reference to Eva, to fight Archangel. Evan was the boy he was growing in the world, which was just the distraction that Psylocke needed to impale Warren with the life seed and finally stop him. Fantomex then sent the boy to the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning for additional training. A portal opened up, revealing the Captain Britain Corps, and Psylocke's brother, Captain Britain, reached through and demanded Fantomex stand trial in Otherworld for killing the kid, despite his Machiavellian reasoning. During his trial, we learned that Fantomex is a dangerous anomaly, that he doesn't exist in any other dimension. He was found guilty and sentenced to eradication from his existence, and as he was injected with chemicals in his brain to carry out his sentence, Lady Britain, Psylocke, pulled him out and carried him away to the Lords of 1,000 Sorrows to save his life. It wasn't long after that the Skinless Man attacked, a man who told them he was Weapon 3. He literally cut off Fantomex's face. He managed to hold his own while Psylocke blocked his pain receptors. In Deadpool's 2008 run, he took X-Force with him to kill the Kingpin, which ended up drawing in Dakin, the Hand, and Typhoid Mary. He then went back to Cavern X, checked on Evan, and slept with Psylocke just before she quit the team. As he was clearing his palate with a party, Mystique showed up to attack Fantomex. Fantomex went to rescue Psylocke from Shadow King on a clue he picked up from Mystique, and was ambushed again by the Skinless Man, and he cut out Fantomex's heart, and Jean-Philippe collapsed to the ground, lifeless. He was dead. When their connection was severed, Eva temporarily reformed into a humanoid shape. A couple months later, Fantomex was resurrected in the White Sky facility, with a catch. Each of his 3 brains got their own body. Now there were 3 Fantomexes: Fantomex, Evil Fantomex, and Cluster. And so in 2013's new Uncanny X-Force, Fantomex and Cluster were in Paris together on a heist and ended up making out. They said they missed Psylocke, and if they did, then Dark Fantomex did too, so they had to find her first. The pair jumped out of a jetliner over Los Angeles while Dark Fantomex mysteriously looked on, enshrouded in darkness. In LA, they stumbled across Bishop fighting with Spiral, which was just the distraction that Dark Fantomex was waiting for to attack. The 3 Phantos ended up battling, with Cluster getting an early upper hand when she kidnapped Psylocke. And right when she asked for Betsy's help saving Jean-Philippe from Weapon 13, the Dark Fantomex, Spiral attacked again. Cluster went to find a guy named Yao, who was with some prostitutes dressed like Deadpool, while Psylocke had her own Fantomex-esque suit on. As they chased Yao, they ran right into Weapon 13. That's right around the time that we also learned that Cluster was doing heists with Psylocke, and the 2 were in love. They soon ended up in a jail cell in Madripoor because of that. In a twist, Psylocke figured out that Cluster and Jean-Philippe had set her up, and so she turned to Weapon 13 and said she wanted to kill Fantomex. They all fought again, over Psylocke really, who complicated it when she unleashed the Demon Bear, but they all got it out of their systems except Psylocke, who left Paris and went back to the X-Men. For A+X, Fantomex was paired up with Black Widow for a story where they went against some old Winter Guard and Soviet super soldiers. In 2014, he joined Cable's new X-Force team along with Psylocke, Marrow, and Dr. Nemesis, and they were tracking down info about the Alexandria incident, which included a mid-air heist on a massive plane to steal a cyber weapon, and then an arms dealer named Volga. He went to Genesis' graduation party, and there he hit on Abigail Brand, who was there to see Brew graduate. Fantomex soon admitted to Eva that he was having a massive mental breakdown before chasing Aeneas of Zybiro Discreet over the rooftops. Fantomex and X-Force then fought with MI-13's Excalibur, Gloriana, and Pete Wisdom. On X-Force's headquarters, which was the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier Pericles, they chased Forget-Me-Not, with Fantomex shooting him and Cable. He then knocked out Dr. Nemesis and killed Forget-Me-Not with a handgun. When Pete Wisdom told them they were to find the Yellow Eye mutant surveillance equipment, Eva was attacked by Meme, aka Hope Summers, and caused Fantomex to betray his team. Before he could kill them all, Domino showed up and shot him in the head. He, of course, quit the team and left. And it turns out that he had been infected by the Volga strain, which upped his power set, but he was purged of that shortly thereafter. In 2016, Fantomex started working on Magneto's team with Mystique as they investigated the Hellfire Club and the Someday Corporation. He later ran into Psylocke, and the two got their anger with each other out. During Civil War II, Magneto sent Fantomex to infiltrate New Adelan and ended up fighting Gambit. When the Inhumans fought the X-Men, Fantomex had to defeat Lockjaw, but he just put the big pup to sleep. He later went back into the world and fought his twin once more, ultimately taking full control of the world. In 2017, Fantomex joined Archangel, Bishop, Sabretooth, Mystique, Psylocke, Rogue, and Gambit as the Astonishing X-Men. Their first big foe was the Shadow King, and later in the series, Fantomex sacrificed his body so that Professor X could live. But he managed to come back a few years later when Storm was affected with a machine virus, which is when Fantomex recruited a team to break into the world to save her. He teamed up with Ultimaton to kill the AIM scientists. At the end, though, he and Ned opted to stay in the world. He also showed up in 2023 on a Hellfire Gala variant for Deadpool. And so, now you know the full story of Fantomex, which means that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.